Hey, what's going on, everybody? This is Dr. Chanda, and you are now tuned in to the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast, where we talk about all things related to health, wellness, culture, faith, and everything in between. Y'all, it has been a very hectic week, but, I felt as though it was necessary for us to come in and talk about some really vital things, some of which I've been experiencing. So I figured, you know what? I'm experiencing this. Therefore, I need to talk to my listeners about this because they could be experiencing this too. All right. So before we hop into that, I do want to jump straight into our shout outs. Today's shout out, I want to give a shout out to some of our YouTube viewers. You guys have literally been lighting the comments up on YouTube, and I'm going to encourage you to continue to do that. That helps us with continuing to share the message. And so specifically, you guys have really enjoyed the Declutter Your Mind episode, which is a few episodes back, specifically talking about how to, declutter your mind as we enter into a new season of our lives, how we allow junk to get there in the first place, and what it looks like and how we can feel after we do a better job at removing things that really serve no purpose in our lives. So if you haven't listened to that yet on the podcast or on the YouTube channel, I need you to run it back and go ahead and do me a favor and listen to that one. Let me know your thoughts on it. Secondly, if you're watching this or you're listening to this, I want you to follow the show. That's right. If you're on YouTube, I need you to subscribe. I need you to hit that little bell so you can be notified every single time I go post a video on there. I need you to also follow me on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Castbox, all those things. It's literally on every single place you can listen to a podcast, y'all. So I need you to go ahead and follow. Go ahead and share it with a friend. Share this episode with a friend or two, because I think that, again, I know that this is something that we've all been dealing with at some point or another, at some point in our lives. We've been dealing with this thing that I'm going to be talking about right here in this here podcast. So I need you to share it with as many people as possible. If you're listening or watching, I know that you probably have a question that you are dying to want me to answer. Like it's literally, I know the question already, and I know it's literally burning you up on the inside. And I just want to say, I'm going to answer this question. Okay, everybody ready? Come closer. Yes, I am wearing the Protect Black Mind sweatshirt. Yes, it's right here. The olive green, the vintage olive green. This is a design that was designed by my best friend, Javon James, who is a architect, designing architect in his own right. And this has been a sweatshirt that a lot of people, it stops people in their tracks and it elicits conversation. I love my apparel because it literally provokes conversation anywhere I go. So yes, I am wearing it, and you can wear one too. All you have to do is go to www.mindsoftheculture.org, and you can go ahead and get you a sweatshirt. You can get the joggers. Yes, these are joggers. They're super cute and very comfortable, and get you the whole set or whatever so you can be prepared to wear it for Mental Health Awareness Month, which is in May. So go ahead and do that. You can use the code MHA or any other code that I have listed in the show notes. You can go ahead and do that. All right, so y'all ready for the hot off the press segment? Because we got some tea to get into. I don't know if y'all heard, but we just going to hop into it. If this is your first time listening, the Hot Off the Press segment is where we talk about all things related to mental health, the news, and culture. All right. So more recently, our girl, Cardi B, has recently deleted her Twitter account. So it all started with Grammy weekend, and her fans were basically questioning her about whether or not she's going to show up to the Grammys. And Cardi responded in a very defensive way and said, with a lot of profanity and lots of different things, and wondering why her fans were challenging her. And her fans really doubled down, and they were just like, sis, like we really want you to come. Like, we're the ones who helped you get when it's up on the charts. Like, we're the one who did that. Therefore, you owe us an explanation as to why you're not going to be there. Cardi doubled down. Long story short, they started talking about her kids. She started talking about their moms. Lo and behold, Cardi deletes her Twitter. Then she runs to Instagram and says, I have to protect myself. If you talk about my family, I'm going to wish death on you, blah, 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 like really getting hype. And then she made a comment about like, my stomach is hurting. I haven't even drank milk. I'm lactose. I don't even drink milk and my stomach is hurting, blah, blah, blah. And she kind of said it in passing and I could tell she maybe didn't put 2 and 2 together. But here are my thoughts on that situation. Okay. All right. Number one, I've been telling y'all, I've been preaching to y'all that y'all really have to stop coming at people on social media. Like, number one, these are relationships that, so these are relationships that are not necessarily in real life, for lack of better words. Like, you don't know these people in real life. Therefore, like, you don't need to be talking about people's kids and stuff, because we don't realize how these are real people behind accounts. Cardi B is a whole mom, a whole person beyond her social media, beyond her millions of followers, beyond her Grammys. She's a human being. Therefore, we have to be respectful of people's thoughts and their emotions, their feelings, because they're not made of steel. They can feel just like we can. So if you wouldn't want anybody saying it to you, your cousin, your mom, or whoever, just try to refrain from holding that. The second part of my thought is, I feel as though one thing that celebrities do that I often find is that they do one of these things that we're going to talk about. It's called disqualifying the positive, right? So it could be a slew of thousands of comments saying, we love you, Cardi. We love you. I think you're the most amazing person in the world. But they won't hone into that 1 or 2 or even 200 people who are out there saying bad things. So out of the millions of comments and followers who are praising you, who are saying you're a great person, you want to hone in on the negativity. And I think as people, whether we're like just regular people like you and I, or even celebrities, I think we could do a better job at changing the way we're thinking about things, changing our perspective on things, and not allowing everything to take us off the rocker. Right? Because if I lived my life like that, if you lived your life like that, you are choosing to function in a miserable place. We're choosing to allow people to disrupt our peace. We're choosing to allow people to change our emotions. Oftentimes, when I was working in a hospital, I was working in a behavioral hospital in Philadelphia, and it would be so frequently, almost like just very frequently, where a teen would just be looking at another teen the wrong way or say something about them, and they're like, oh, I want to fight that person. I want to fight. Okay, that person, wow, I can't believe that person has that much power over your emotions. And they just be looking at me like I'm crazy, like, what are you talking about? You're literally giving away your power by allowing somebody else's words to impact how you respond. Like, I mean, I don't know if there's any other way to see it. Like, you're literally allowing that person to disturb your peace. So I do think that the fans could have, like, piped down a little bit, mind their business a little bit. But also I do think that Cardi B and people in general, we can choose to allow our day to be disrupted by engaging in some of the negative stuff that we see online about ourselves. And granted, I'm not going to say I'm perfect, because I just stopped arguing with people on Instagram. I just stopped. So, but there comes to a time and a place where you have to be mature about these things. You have to learn how to move past the naysayers, move past people who might just want to highlight the negative, and focus in on those who are, who have your back, who are there to support. The third thing that I observed about this situation, Cardi kind of like said in passing, like, oh, my stomach is hurting. That clearly is, she said, like, this wasn't, I stopped drinking milk. I don't know why my stomach is hurting. Granted, I'm not her psychologist. I didn't do any psychological evaluations on her, so this is just a hypothesis. But I do believe that this situation disrupted her emotions so much to the point where she was experiencing physiological symptoms, right? So that often happens when we have psychological distress, things that are impacting us, things that are distressing us, and we don't know how to manage it. It starts to manifest in a physiological way. One of those ways can be stomach aches. It can be through headaches. It can be through, just physical areas that we might feel anxiety or depression or what have you. So I do think that may have been correlated with some of the things that she was experiencing. And lo and behold, she says, I need to protect myself. I am going to delete my Instagram or my Twitter. So, I mean, kudos to you, Cardi, for making that decision. I know it can be hard to pull away from social media, especially as a creator. Like, that's a lot of where they get their their content goes. That's where their music goes. So I think that's kudos to you, but I also think as people, we can just do a better job at not allowing people to disturb our peace. All right, so that was the hot off the press segment. We're going to go straight into the topic. I've been kind of dancing around this topic a little bit. I haven't really talked to you guys directly about what it is because I wanted you to really think about it for a second before I hop into it. So, all right, we are talking today about cognitive distortions. Cognitive distortions. And I know that might sound like a real a fancy word, but it really isn't, right? So think about the word cognitive. So when I say cognitive, I'm basically saying thoughts, right? The way we think. And then distortion, think about when something is distorted. It's twisted. It's not in its original form, right? In the form in which it was intended. So I'm identifying twisted ways of thinking, which are cognitive distortions, twisted ways of thinking. Now, how is this relevant to me, Dr. Chanda? I'm so glad you asked, because we all identify with, or we all have utilized a cognitive distortion in one way or another. There's no perfect person under the sun who has never experienced any sort of cognitive distortion. We've all had thoughts that have impacted us emotionally. We've all had thoughts that have not been rooted in reality. We've all had thought about the worst case scenario or jumped to a conclusion or, thought about things in a way that where it wasn't actually reality. Why is it important to point out? Think about it. When I think negatively, I'm going to feel negatively. I'm going to feel all those emotions that we don't want to really feel, such as anxiety, depression, guilt, shame. All those emotions can come from the way that I'm thinking. So when we talk about cognitive distortions, there are several different distortions that a lot of us tend to utilize, but I'm only going to highlight 3 today. And I don't know, depending on how you guys respond to this one, I may add this in the bonus episodes and go a little bit further into that because this is some good stuff. I love teaching this stuff. I teach at the university level about to other future doctors about cognitive distortions because it's so powerful. We all have utilized them, even as me as a psychologist. All right, so y'all ready for the first one? You know how we do at the Paging Dr. Chanda podcast. I need you to go ahead and grab your pen and grab your paper so we can get into this information, okay? All right, the first one is, we're going to stick with the Cardi B situation. So, disqualifying the positive, right? So think about it. This is just an example, but out of all the people praising her, all the support, all the comments that were amazing, she honed in on those few people who had something negative to say about her not being at the Grammys. That is called disqualifying the positive. Even an example about, for you who have that, a day-to-day life, right? For us in the I don't want to say regular people because nothing about me was regular, but I hope that didn't sound arrogant. But just us people, general people in general society. We do a presentation, right? You do a presentation at your job. 8 people say, you did a presentation in front of 10 people. 8 people say that was amazing, the most amazing presentation you ever did. I never heard any information like this. It was wonderful. 2 people say, well, it could have been a little bit better. It wasn't your best work. Better luck next time. Disqualifying the positive would be, wow, I did such a horrible job because these 2 people said that I didn't do an amazing job. No, 2 things can be true at the same time. I could have done an amazing job and still have been able to do a little bit better in that area that they highlighted. So one area that I want you guys to focus in on is am I disqualifying the positive in the way I'm thinking? Do I automatically jump to the -2 versus the 8 amazing things? Another area we might use this is, let's say we had amazing performance reviews for the past year or so. Amazing performance reviews. And then that one time somebody says something that you didn't like. We're discounting the positive by only focusing on that one thing that people didn't like without taking all of the evidence into consideration. This can negatively impact you on an emotional level, on a behavioral level, like the way you think about yourself, even your self-esteem. So we have to really be cognizant and aware of when we are utilizing this. All right, y'all ready for the second cognitive distortion? The second one is should statements. should statements. Oftentimes in the psychology behavioral health realm, we tell our clients, you got to stop shoulding on yourself. should statements. Stop shoulding on yourself. Basically, that means that when I'm shoulding, I am stating statements like, I should have done it this way. I should be further in life. I shouldn't have said X, Y, and Z. I should be able to perform in this matter, right? When we make should statements, we're not giving ourselves the grace to be able to show up in the way that we're designed to show up. We're not giving ourselves the grace to be able to acknowledge that we are human, we have human flaws, and therefore it shouldn't necessarily be a matter of should, but more so a matter of acknowledging areas of continued growth. That's it. I don't have to judge, because should is judgmental. Should is judgmental. Check yourself the next time you say a should statement to yourself. Y'all ready for the third one? The third one is what we call black and white thinking, or dichotomous thinking. So it's either all good or all bad, right? So it's no in between, it's no gray area. I'm either thinking in an all good way or an all bad way. Well, how does this present in our lives, Dr. Chanda? I'm so glad you asked. Okay, so think about it this way. Let's say you're in school, you get a B plus on an exam instead of that A plus that you really wanted. B plus isn't bad, right? But someone who thinks in that black and white area might say something like, wow, I got a B plus. That means I'm a failure. I got a B plus. That means I'm never going to graduate. That means I'm never going to get into grad school. That means I'm never going to be a good doctor or whatever you're in school for, right? We take things that are not 100% good and we attribute them to, we generalize them into saying that, well, if it's not 100% good, then it's all bad. If I get a minus, that means I'm not a smart person. If I'm not showing up, if I don't receive praise in this 100% way, if I don't show up in this 100% way, that means that I'm a complete failure. We got to stop shoulding, y'all. We got to stop shoulding. All right, so what do we have? Disqualifying the positive, should statements, and black and white thinking. I can't believe I'm done already. All right, so that was today's topic. I want you guys to continue to ruminate. I want you to think about, like, okay, am I shoulding at this point? Am I giving myself room for grace? Am I thinking in areas of gray, right? Because when we constantly think in these negative ways, we're allowing ourselves room to feel negatively. We're allowing ourselves room to feel and to function negatively in our lives. And we don't have time for that. Like, you got things you got to do. You got, goals you're trying to accomplish. You do not have time to be thinking in this black and white way. We just don't have time for it. Even me as a professional, right? So me as a professional, it's important for even us as psychologists or clinicians, mental health professionals, to check ourselves when we find ourselves thinking in these ways. And because we have the tools, because we learned this in school, it's like we're constantly on guard when we do it. But everybody does it. It's not just a you thing. It's not a Dr. Chanda thing. We think sometimes in ways that are not always rooted and grounded in reality. But it's important to check it and change it. All right, y'all. So let me know what y'all think about this episode. I might actually dig deeper into how to check and change cognitive distortions. I hope that you enjoyed this podcast. I hope that it really blessed you and it resonated with you. One thing that I want you to do, you know what? I'm going to save that for the bonus episode if y'all want it. So comment if you want it. If you don't got to say nothing. But let me know if y'all want this bonus episode, and we'll continue to move forward with that. Don't forget, y'all, so I want you to subscribe to the YouTube. Make sure that you're following the show on Apple Podcasts, I don't know, JR, what are all the podcast platforms? Apple, Spotify, iHeart, Podcast, Castbox, just all of them. Make sure that you're following me on Instagram. And don't forget, you have the power to create the emotions that you want to experience. All right, y'all. I will talk to y'all next week. Have an amazing